Today on A Beer with Starlo, I'm joined by Chris Cleaver, without doubt one of the most influential anglers in Australia today. I'm going to be talking to him a few times over the next year or two, and we'll cover a range of topics including chasing big Murray cod. We'll probably have a look at broadbill swordfish, maybe even snapper and tuna, and some new trends in tackle. But I wanted to talk to him today about something that I believe he's best known for, and that's catching MULLOWAY or jewfish on lures. I don't think there are too many people in Australia who have a better strike rate on jewies on lures than Chris Cleaver. And I wanted to start by asking you, Chris, if you had to identify one single factor that's helped to make you so successful at catching jewies on lures, what would it be?
I don't think there is one single factor that makes you good at catching them, but probably in the beginning it was probably perseverance, determination to reach a goal, and then I think that's when them other factors come into line. So in the beginning it was cast. I didn't know where to fish. I didn't know anything about tides or whether them fish existed in certain rivers I was fishing in. It was just little glimmers of hope. Even yourself was inspiration back in the day. Articles on the Shellhaven fishing for them that spurred me on to try and know what I know today about jewfish. So, and then obviously there's a few other factors that are very key into what makes that species tick.
So there was a lot of trial and error really in the beginning, and a lot of failures.
In the very beginning, it was you would cast for 8 hours a day, all day long. Just pick likely looking areas that you thought would be alright. Didn't have GPS, didn't have sounder when I first started. We had a little tinny, didn't even have an electric, and we did a land-based as well. And I failed on the beach fishing. I got the odd fish off the beach on bait, which everyone tries, but never really clued into the key factors on the beach that obviously get you fish. But after a while, things started to tick. You would hook fish on certain parts of tides, in certain spots. You could then repeat that process, and I guess over time certain ways to work a lure and certain type of lures seem to prove themselves as performing fish attractors.
And then obviously your confidence builds too, and that's got to be an important part.
Confidence is huge. If you go out thinking there should be a dewie in that spot, everything's correct, and you present the lure in the way you want to present it, then 9 times out of 10 a dewey's got to eat. So he's going to attack that lure that you've presented to it.
Well, let's talk about the fish. I like to sort of think about fish having personalities, not from a human point of view, but behavioural characteristics that identify that species. How would you personify and characterise MULLOWAY or jewfish?
Oh mate, they can be the devil one moment and then they can be an angel the next. I guess if anyone's spent any time at night chasing them, especially around the mullet run, a lot of Central Coast guys would have experienced it. You can see a school of mullet just shadowing a breakwall, and the next minute it is like all hell's broken loose, and there is just big heads and gills flared and mullet going everywhere, even on the rocks. And I guess that's when they're the devil. And at times you can mark them on the sounder and put everything you have in your box in front of them, and you may not even get a sniff. And I guess that's when they're the angel. And when you start to learn what they like and where they like to sit and at what times, I guess like in that mullet situation I spoke about, that is almost a feeding frenzy, and that's when you've got to put your lure in there, and they can hit a lure damn hard too.
Well, talk about time and tides. Like, are there hard and fast rules, or do they break the rules?
I guess it comes down to day and night as well. So during the day, if you spend any time looking at them in an aquarium, Sydney Aquarium's a great example. During the day, the Jews tend to be tucked up in a corner or under something, so you can tell they're quite a reserved animal when they do that. And I think in most cases during the day they are like that, or they won't be far from a structure like that where they can reside, except most extreme conditions of flood or mass amount of bait that just brings them out to start feeding. But definitely around the tide change.
Tide changes. And change of light, do you think that's an important from going from night time into daytime and those periods?
Change of tide with a change of life is like, yeah, that is, you're starting to get into like really key time for feeding. They are a predator that is very adept to dirty water or low light conditions in catching their prey, and can do it in extremely shallow water. You've done it yourself. It's amazing where they can turn up. Fish are where you find them. But at night time we tend to fish very shallow, and in daytime we tend to fish closer to deep water or deep water most of the time. I think in the daytime the tide change disorientates the bait. So if you spend any time along a bank watching bait when the tide's running, they're quite huddled and hold close to the bank. As the tide slackens and lessens, they think, oh, I'll roam around, I'm free to swim anywhere, and the jewfish aren't far away to intercept where that may be. So
lures. If you only had one lure, if you had to stick to one lure for the rest of your dewy fishing, that'd be a terrible thing to have to do. What would you use?
I've used a lot of lures over the years and a lot of different techniques, but hands down the one lure that even kicked it all off for me really, and still to this day if things are tough to put on, is 100mm silver fox squidgy fish. Without doubt, it just emulates either a mullet, a herring or a little tailor, and the predominant food source of a jewfish, once it gets over 80 centimetres, it changes from prawns to fish. And the top fish we want to catch are up to that metre or over. So we're emulating almost exactly a snack size item that they eat every day.
So the old 100mm squidgy fish and the silver fox. And you'd vary your head weight depending on the depth and the current, I guess.
Exactly, yeah.
All right, well, luckily you don't have to stick to one lure, so I know you've done a lot of experimentation. I know you've caught them on some wacky stuff. I think you've caught them on spinnerbaits, haven't you?
Yep, spinnerbaits, mumblers is another one. What else? Jackals with a beetle spin blade on them. You name it, I've tried it, because as fishermen, we are always looking for the golden bullet, so to speak, that one lure that seems to catch a fish no matter what. Definitely some lures do it better than others. That's why I said the 100mm squidgy fish. It just seems to do it religiously.
Where's your experimentation taking you to these days? What are you enjoying throwing at them?
Probably when the swim bait scene started on cod, my train of thought initially went, hang on a minute, the Dewey's got to eat this. My first experiments on it were total failures, but I actually figured out the time that I tried them and when I tried them, the fishing was very slow. And there wasn't a lot of fish around, and I think the idea lacked the confidence that we spoke about earlier, and the few fish I was getting were on plastic. I then revisited it before when it was cod close season, and I wanted to have a crack as the season opened on the cod with swim baits, and the jewfish were a bit more prevalent at the time when I tried them, and the first session was I think 3 or 4 fish over a metre in 3 or 4 casts.
Wow.
And in Sydney waters, straight off the bat on swim baits with a mate throwing plastic beside me for one soapy 75 centimetres.
Okay.
And that sort of that ticked the box straight away. I went, hang on a minute, and I used it on swim bait tackle. So bait caster and an overhead rod, and I found it very enjoyable to use in that way.
It's a sweet way to catch fish. Look, we'll come back and we'll talk about this again. You know, there's so much more we can go into on Mulloway, but I couldn't leave you today without talking a little bit about sustainability and conservation of Mulloway stocks, because I know that's something that's very front and centre of mind for you. And we know from the research that they're under a lot of pressure, and that on the East Coast at least the population's only a shadow of its former self. How do you feel about the future of Mulloway?
In light of some data that actually came publicly to hand, which was from a Gipper request from myself, it was quite damning. I actually anecdotally have seen it decline over the years. Like I said, when I started, we didn't have sounders, we didn't have charting. The amount of technology we have now, you can drive along a river side scanning until you find a jewfish, where in the past you couldn't do that. So as anglers, we've got better lures, better rods, better lines, better technology, social media. You see someone catch a jewfish, you might be able, if you know the river, you can go, I know exactly where that is. So we'd got a lot better at catching them. There was a lot more people targeting them. And, some people would say, "Oh, the fish wised up," but the amount of different lures and techniques we have these days, that fish still have to eat, and unfortunately, a jewfish, when the switch is flicked, will eat regardless. So, anecdotally, I'd say there is a decline of some kind in a few river systems. It wasn't just one. So I was like, it's not me having a bad run on the fish. I've anecdotally seen it drop off over the years. So I've got this data, and you've seen it yourself. Yes. It's very damaging.
It is. Yeah.
I think it was 7% of the wild population.
About 7% of the original biomass is what's left, which means that 93% are gone. So it's a worry.
I mean, that is going back a long time, but
sure.
Still 7%. I think 20% is what the mean average that they deem as a reasonably healthy in this day and age. So we're a long way from that, and still declining. Like I said before, we've got better and better techniques, and people have got better information. So it looks like a lot of jewies are getting caught on social media, and population might be healthy, but I think we're just very good at catching what few fish are there, and they are a top of the line predatory species. So,
well, the other thing that came out of that data too was that they're not getting the chance to achieve the sizes they would have once. They tend to get caught once they become legal, and a lot of them get killed, and you don't see as many of those metre plus fish as would have been around 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago.
Yeah, so a large portion of the fish were actually not getting to spawn. I don't want to harp on the commercial side of things, because I'd like to work with the commercial guys in fixing it, but a lot didn't get to spawn, which is a problem, and obviously us recreational anglers got a lot better at catching them, so our take was a lot more too. But we have seen that there is the younger generation, and nothing against the older generation, they are changing as well, that capture and release has become a big thing for these fish, and I do believe in the future. We've had some talks with the commercial guys, we've been working on it, and there may be a bright future in 5 years' time.
So you're cautiously optimistic?
If we can change a few things, both commercially and recreationally, I believe, due to the growth rate, a med jewfish is probably 4 to 5 years on average. In some systems even quicker, depending on bait supply. They are quite a resilient fish that can bounce back quite quickly to what is... A metre fish is quite a trophy fish, especially an urban waterway. You've seen it, cars and trucks driving overhead, and boats going whizzing everywhere, jet skis, and
this gleaming silver thing comes up out of the river. It's just
the end of the day, and if they can get a good 5-year break where we're not giving them a bit of a hiding, and that doesn't mean we can't fish for them.
No.
That doesn't mean the commercial guys can't still take what they need to take. That fish could bounce back to very proportional stocks, where you can quite optimistically, like you said, go out and go, I think I'm going to crack a dewie in the 80 to 90 or better today. If conditions are right, tides are right. Tide change on light maybe with a nice barometer and the right lure. So
I'll drink to that, mate.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Sounds good.
Tight line.